Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Emily Sue.
And I'm Brittyn Clennett. Here's a look at tonight's top stories.
Live TV broadcasts of crime drama in Kowloon Bay questioned as police maintain strong presence.
War of words breaks out between rival groups ahead of 25th anniversary of Tiananmen Square crackdown.
Dragon boat races across city draw thousands of rowers and spectators. Security remained tight at a public housing block in Kowloon Bay today after 2 violent deaths there over the weekend.
But live TV coverage of police attempts to arrest a suspect revived memories of the bus hostage tragedy in Manila 4 years ago. ATV's Winner Wong reports.
The police maintained a heavy presence in a public housing estate block in Kowloon Bay today following 2 violent deaths over the weekend. But lawmakers are asking questions about live TV broadcasts of the drama. They pointed to the 2010 Manila hostage tragedy, which ended with 8 Hong Kong residents losing their lives.
So it's potentially risky. I think the police should publicize the general guidelines and ask the police to ask the media to cooperate. Otherwise, if the suspect could find out what the police were doing from TV broadcasts, the situation could become very dangerous.
The police swung into action after the body of Liu Kai-chung was found in the lift lobby on the 21st floor of Lok Ching House in Kai-chung Estate on Saturday night. The 43-year-old victim had been shot twice in the chest and once in the back. About 12 hours later, in a dramatic operation, officers from the Special Duties Unit used stun grenades and tear gas as they stormed the home of a suspect on the 10th floor of the same building. Inside, they found that the suspect, identified as 51-year-old Lee Tak-yan, had taken his own life. The 10th and 21st floors remained cordoned off today, and people living there had to register with the police to move in and out. Some residents complained they had been kept in the dark about the police operation, but others praised officers. If people had been informed, they might have all come running, and that would have been very dangerous, said this resident. Security footage from the building showed Lee and Liu taking the lift together on Saturday night, but they did not appear to know each other. Lee is believed to have walked down the stairs to his home 11 floors below after Liu was shot, as there was no footage of him using the lift. Residents on the 10th floor said they received calls from the housing department as early as 10 a.m. yesterday, warning them to stay inside their homes and lie low. An hour later, as officers surrounded the building, Lee fired 2 shots and the police replied with 1, but all missed. Lee then briefly appeared on a ledge outside his flat, pointing a gun to his head. After a gunshot was heard inside the flat, police fired tear gas and stun grenades and stormed the flat where Lee was found unconscious. He was declared dead in hospital. The police are working with their Guangdong counterparts to trace the origin of 2 pistols found in Lee's flat. He had been jailed for 12 months in 2011 for chopping off the finger of a former neighbor in Yunlong. Legislator Priscilla Leung and members of her Kowloon West New Dynamic group protested outside police headquarters this morning. She said many residents remain nervous after the incident, but the government says it will help them.
Our clinical psychologists, together with the housing department, will arrange debriefing sessions, hopefully from tomorrow onwards, and also provide emotional counseling as well, professional services.
Leung also called for tighter security in Kowloon Bay. Winner Wong, ATV News.
A war of words has broken out between rival groups just 2 days before the 25th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square crackdown.
Unionist lawmaker Lee Tak-yan denounced a claim by Beijing loyalists that troops were sent to the capital's main square to scare away protesters, saying truth-twisting statements would only motivate more Hong Kong people to join a candlelight vigil.
The leader of the Hong Kong Alliance fighting for the vindication of the 1989 pro-democracy movement and the group planning a counter-demonstration took to the airwaves this morning to trade verbal blows. Patrick Ho, who chairs the pro-Beijing Voice of Loving Hong Kong, said he wants to reveal the truth about what happened on the 4th of June 1989, when tanks and soldiers ended weeks of protests by unarmed pro-democracy student activists in Tiananmen Square. Ko said it's wrong to label the incident as a crackdown, claiming the show of force was meant to scare away students who had refused to leave. He added that most accounts failed to report that many soldiers were injured by violent rioters and insisted that no one was killed inside the square. What is the difference between dying inside the square or on Chang'an Avenue next to the square? Asked Li Cheuk-yan, who heads the Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements in China. The point is the military opened fire, killed people, and it was a massacre. Li denounced Ko for trying to blame the students when Beijing has refused to investigate the crackdown and banned discussions on the subject for the past 25 years. The lawmaker asked Ko to urge Beijing's liaison office here to request the central authorities to tell the truth about June 4th. While saying he would consider Li's proposal, Ko argued that Hong Kong should move on as the tragedy happened a quarter of a century ago. Li, on the other hand, believes that Ko's truth-twisting remarks will prompt more Hong Kong people to join the candlelight vigil in Victoria Park on Wednesday. But he urged participants not to be provoked by Voice of Loving Hong Kong's counter-rally outside the Causeway Bay venue. Li said the focus should be on paying tribute to those who died in the crackdown.
Tourists rubbed shoulders with locals today and braved the sweltering heat to watch dragon boat races at beaches across the city.
International and Hong Kong teams took part in the races that highlight the 2June Festival. ATV's Arthur Urquiola reports.
The 2June, or Dragon Boat Festival today, was as colorful as ever, as people flocked to beaches to watch the races, which are the focus of the annual public holiday. The biggest crowd puller was the Stanley International Dragon Boat Championships, which attracted about 5,000 rowers from 240 local and international teams. The paddlers went all out as they vied for $18,000 in prizes for the best outfits. The sweltering heat didn't bother the participants.
We enjoyed it very much, and it doesn't affect us in adversely.
Endure it together and enjoy the sport together. I wish all the other teams best of luck.
This is an amazing event, so you can see like perfect weather, and then it's gonna be a very fun racing later.
Not to be outdone, the festivities in Aberdeen began this morning with 65 teams racing along the promenade. Umbrellas and sunglasses were the order of the day, punctuated with announcements to beware about heat stroke. And a first for the city, one race in Aberdeen featured boats made of a carbon fiber used in yachts. At 600 kilos, they weigh about half as much as traditional dragon boats and can increase speed by up to a third. There were also celebrations in the new territories, with Tai Po hosting the main event. Aside from the races, rice dumplings are another festival tradition. At this village in Sha Tin, the dumplings are made the old-fashioned way, using traditional wood stoves. The delicacy is cooked in gray water, or water mixed with ashes in the stove from the previous year. But 70-year-old Mrs. Chang lamented that the traditional method is a dying art. She noted that firewood is more expensive these days, forcing her family to gather the wood themselves from the hillsides. Still, it was well worth the effort, as the younger generation of the Chang family joined her to keep a centuries-old tradition alive. Arthur Urquiola, ATV News.
Those hoping to beat the summer heat with a dip in the sea were disappointed today as a number of beaches were hit by red tide.
But despite health warnings, some decided to mark the holiday with a swim anyway.
The public holiday and bright skies should have made it a perfect day at the beach. But hopes were dashed as red flags were hoisted at a number of beaches on Hong Kong Island. At Repulse Bay, the water turned dark red as a result of red tide, a species of algae that feeds on nutrients from the city's wastewater. Similar sightings were also reported at beaches in Deepwater Bay, Middle Bay, South Bay and Chung Hom Kok in Southern District. Warm water temperatures between late spring and early summer provide the ideal conditions for the red tide to proliferate overnight. The algal bloom is not only an eyesore, it may also produce toxins that are harmful to fish and humans.
Beachgoers were advised to stay away from the water, but some didn't seem too worried about possible health risks. This woman said she and her family came all the way for a splash to mark the Dragon Boat Festival, but added they wouldn't venture too far out to sea. This man, who's a regular at the beach, said he hardly noticed any difference in water quality. But this boy was taking precautions and said he wouldn't go into the water unless it turned less red.
The government is considering a proposal to appoint more non-industry members to the Medical Council to speed up the handling of complaints against doctors.
But the health chief says the legal implications of such a move have to be studied. Arthur Akiola reports.
Last Sunday marked the end of a long and painful ordeal for actress Eugenia Lau and singer Peter Chung. On that day, the Medical Council found obstetrician Christine Choi guilty of professional misconduct and the death of their newborn son in 2005. Choi was axed from the medical register for 2 years. But it took 5 years for the case to be completed, prompting calls for an increase in the number of non-medical professionals in the council to speed up the handling of complaints against doctors. 4 council members and a non-medical assessor are required for inquiries. But the city has only 4 assessors. Health Chief Koing Man today said the recommendation to increase the number of assessors is worth considering, as it will also allow more than 1 hearing to take place at a time. But he pointed out that as the law may have to be amended, studies on the legal implications of such a move are required. Turning to today's Dragon Boat Festival, Ko noted there were enough live chickens for special dinners, although prices remained high. He's optimistic, though, that prices will stabilize when live imports from the mainland resume in the middle of this month. The ban on mainland chickens was imposed in February after a batch tested positive for the H7N9 strain of the bird flu virus. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Still to come on ATV's main news tonight, release of US soldier from Afghan captivity divides opinion in Washington.
Celebrations as India's newest state is 29th is born.
Elemental Evolution. The ATV 2014 Miss Asia pageant is about to start. Ladies, come and show the world your beauty.
The ATV 2014 Miss Asia pageant, waiting for your participation. Come and join us now.
Elemental Evolution. ATV Miss Asia Pageant 2014 is now inviting applications. They can drive you nuts. From the most powerful roaring on earth to the sexiest bodies you'll ever see. They're surely every man's dream. Drive it tonight at 8. Share the message of love. Lead you to a new journey of joy. Open your heart to discover the real meaning of life. Leading the way. Every Sunday morning at 8.
The selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage in 2017 will be a milestone in Hong Kong's constitutional development.
According to Article 45 of the Basic Law, a broadly representative nominating committee will nominate candidates. Then all voters will elect the chief executive through one person, one vote. Finally, there is appointment by the Central People's Government.
Following these steps, we can all elect our chief executive in 2017.
Exploring the young, cool and vibrant Berlin.
You know, every German has a little Adolf inside. A little tiny one, which must be suppressed. And what was that there was chanting there?
Apple juice.
Experiencing the nicest prison life.
Hello, I think you've got my key.
And the most amazing beer spa. Paul Merton always seeks out surprises. Documentary World. Paul Merton in Europe. Tonight at 9. Want to promote your latest products on television? ATV's 2014 Ad Easy package is the right choice for you. Our promotion reaches as far as the Pearl River Delta region and southern China, and our price starts at just $68,000. Call 2992-8890 or our mainland hotline now.
The White House has come under fire over a secret deal that led to freedom for the only U.S. soldier captured in Afghanistan.
But while the soldier's family and friends are celebrating, some of his former platoon members called him a deserter. The yellow ribbons are openly on display in the U.S. town of Haley in Idaho State. That's because native son, Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, has been freed by the Taliban after nearly 5 years in captivity in Afghanistan. The 28-year-old is currently at a U.S. military hospital in Germany for a medical checkup and debriefing, and it's not known when he'll finally return home.
Bo has been gone so long that it's going to be very difficult to come back. It's like a diver going deep on a dive and has to stage back up through recompression to get the nitrogen bubbles out of his system. If he comes up too fast, it could kill him.
President Barack Obama, flanked by Bergdahl's parents, announced his release yesterday, declaring that Washington leaves no man or woman in uniform behind on the battlefield. But the soldier's freedom has triggered a row in Washington. Republican Senator John McCain warned of the risk to America because Bergdahl was released in exchange for 5 senior Taliban officials held in grueling Guantanamo Bay for the past 12 years. Other Republicans accused the White House of negotiating with terrorists, but the defense chief dismissed their fears.
I think America's record is pretty clear on going after terrorists, especially those who take hostages. And I don't think what we did in getting our prisoner of war released in any way would somehow encourage terrorists to take our American servicemen prisoner or hostage.
Some of those who served with Bergdahl have their own reservations. They called him a deserter and noted that at least 6 American soldiers died searching for him after he disappeared. There's also speculation that Bergdahl had become disillusioned with the U.S. war in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, Taliban leader Mullah Muhammad Omar hailed the release of the 5 Guantanamo Bay detainees as a major victory. They will have to stay in Qatar for a year, but on the streets of the Afghan capital. Some people said freeing them could increase violence. The Afghan government, which was not consulted about the exchange, criticised the US and said it broke international law by sending the Taliban detainees to Qatar instead of returning them to Kabul. Spain's King Juan Carlos has decided to abdicate after 39 years on the throne.
But first, in a roundup of international news, people in India are celebrating the birth of a new state. ATV's Ben O'Rourke reports.
There were noisy celebrations on the streets of Hyderabad as India's 29th state was born. The new state, called Telangana, was carved from the northern part of Andhra Pradesh. Lawmakers argued over but eventually passed a bill to create the new state earlier this year.
We are very happy. It has been a very long struggle and a collective effort. And after so many sacrifices, finally we have achieved Telangana.
Demands that the region be made a separate state have been made for almost as long as India has been independent. The new state will have a population of around 35 million people across 10 districts and account for 17 seats in parliament. Supporters say Telangana's economic development has been neglected in favour of the richer and more powerful coastal areas. Hyderabad, India's 6th largest city and tech business hub, is part of the new state, but will be the joint capital of the 2 states for the next decade. Elsewhere in India, supporters of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party clashed with police in Uttar Pradesh over the rape and hanging of 2 girls that sparked an international outcry. Police used water cannon to disperse the protesters when they tried to march on the office of Chief Minister Akhilesh Yadav in the state capital, Lucknow. He has come under fire over lawlessness in the state and the failure of police to investigate sex crimes. Modi has yet to comment on the killings. The two girls, aged 14 and 15, went missing from their home last Tuesday and were found hanging from a mango tree the following day. A post-mortem found the victims, from a low caste, had been raped. 3 suspects from a higher caste and 2 police constables have been arrested. After nearly 4 decades on the throne, Spain's King Juan Carlos is abdicating. His son Prince Felipe will succeed him. The once popular king has lost public support recently due to corruption scandals and gaffes. His daughter, Princess Cristina, and her husband are under investigation in a corruption case. The king, who has been suffering from health problems over the past few years, says he is stepping down for personal reasons. Ben O'Rourke, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Raymond Young.
So uncertainty looms again over the 2022 World Cup.
Well, that's right. There are even calls for another vote. With 10 days to go before this year's World Cup, there are fresh questions about Qatar's winning bid for the 2022 edition. Qatari officials will meet FIFA tonight in a bid to head off demands that the Arab state be dropped as hosts.
Qatar has a lot to explain after the Sunday Times alleged the disgraced former FIFA vice president Mohammed bin Hammam had dished out millions of dollars in exchange for the votes that made the Arab state the hosts of the 2022 World Cup. Qatari authorities have denied the accusations by the British newspaper, insisting that bin Hammam was never in their bidding committee. The choice of Qatar as venue for the 2022 World Cup has already come under fire.
We apologize for the technical problems in our previous story. And now turning to other sports. MotoGP racer Marc Marquez has won the Italian Grand Prix, while Hideki Matsuyama has become the 4th Japanese golfer to clinch a PGA Tour title.
The Memorial Tournament in Dublin, Ohio came down to a sudden death playoff between Japan's Hideki Matsuyama and American Kevin Na. Both players had finished at 13 under par 275, 1 stroke clear of overnight leader Bubba Watson. Matsuyama sealed victory with this downhill putt on the first extra hole. The 22-year-old is the youngest champion to clinch the tournament and the 4th player from Japan to lift a PGA Tour trophy. Tournament host Jack Nicklaus said Matsuyama has a bright future ahead of him.
I thought it was a great week, great weather, great tournament. There was, I think we had a great winner. This young man's going to win a lot of golf tournaments.
Matsuyama has now set his sights on winning a major. At the Italian MotoGP in Mugello, it didn't take long for top riders Marc Marquez and Jorge Lorenzo to fight for the lead. It was a duel between the Spaniards for most of the race, and the final lap had everyone trackside on the edge of their seats. Honda rider Marquez maintained his narrow edge to finish a fraction of a second ahead of Lorenzo. It was Marquez's 6th successive victory and stretched his lead in the overall championship to 53 points.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I think it's the toughest race of this year. I struggled especially on the beginning because, okay, maybe I was stronger on the break points, but Jorge was so strong in the mid corner. He was able to keep a high speed, and in the beginning I was struggling quite a lot, but then with the used tires, I start to feel again like in the practice.
Lorenzo was forced to settle for 2nd place, while home favorite Valentino Rossi fought his way back from 10th position to finish 3rd.
And finally, a look at the weather before we go. Hong Kongers had to sweat it out on the last day of their long holiday weekend as the sweltering heat continued. Temperatures range from 28.4 to 32.7 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 63 and 85%. Winds were moderate coming in from the southwest. Let's check on the ultraviolet reading. The maximum recorded for the day was 11. And tomorrow's UV index will be around 9. Just a reminder that the very hot warning remains in force. Now for a look at the weather in the region. A trough of low pressure is affecting southern China. And now these satellite images. It is mainly fine over Guangdong and the northern part of the South China Sea. Here's what we can expect over the next few days. Hot with sunny intervals tomorrow, but there will also be a few showers. Temperatures will range from 28 to 32 degrees. More of the same in the next couple of days, but turning cloudy with thunderstorms over the weekend. Here are the latest pollution readings under the Air Quality Health Index. General stations are at 2 to 3, meaning the health risk is low. Roadside levels are at 3 to 4, and the health risk is low to moderate. Finally, here's the weather around the world.
That's our main news for Monday night. We'll have an update in 1 hour. I'm Brittyn Clennett.
I'm Raymond Yang.
And I'm Emily Sue. Thank you for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.